Welcome, it's Kimberly Sherry, International Energy Healer, helping you lead a life of wealth without worry. Today, I am talking about death and dying. It has been a very long week, a very rough week. For those of you who have been following, know that my mother passed away on Wednesday. And I've learned a lot in this process. Hey, Adriana, thanks for watching. And first of all, I just want to thank everyone for their massive outpouring of support and kindness and comforting words and just your love and hey Yanli, it's really it's been overwhelming. So I just want to thank everyone for that first. It's been a very interesting process, this whole death and dying thing. It's something that either you've already gone through, hi Yunli, or you're going to go through. And it's one of those things that I would say it's we're the least prepared for. You know, if you think about, at least for me, I'll speak for myself, growing up, you know, this is the first time I've ever been with somebody who's been dying. And all the programs that I've had around dying are with pets. And what do we do with pets? You know, when we see they're past the point of no return, we take them to a place where they can be taken out of their misery and their suffering, and we create an end to that. But we don't do that with people. We don't do that with our loved ones, the ones we're the closest with. And for much of this process, I've been really angry about that, and just thinking it's just so unfair to have to watch your loved ones withering and just dehydrating and basically starving to death. So once they get on comfort care, what that means is they're basically just making them comfortable, giving them morphine, and it's just a waiting process. They're not hooked up to any monitors. They're you know, no hydration, they can't swallow, and so it's, hey Tanea, and so it's, now I'm gonna get emotional. So it's really a hard process to even watch, you know, watch your loved ones having to go through this. And across the hall, there was a gentleman who was also going through the same thing, only he did not have one visitor the whole time we were there. And, you know, I could see his face and his breathing patterns, and it was very disturbing. It reminded me of a rabbit that we had that died, and he died with his mouth stretched wide open, his head pushed back, and it's like, I can't watch my mom end up like that. I basically had to tap out. I had to say to my family, I can't do this anymore, and I'm so grateful that the rest of you can be here for her, but you know, like I just couldn't do it. So that's what I did. You know, there's no right or wrong about how you're going to process being with your loved ones when they die, but you know, everybody's going to do it differently, and so that's what I had to do. And there's a few things that I also learned in this whole process. So before my mother even ended up in the hospital, I was using my gifts to kind of measure where she was and to, hey Angela, and to get an assessment of where she was vibrationally. In the week before all of this happened, or maybe the 2 weeks before, I was helping her remove a lot of fears. You know, she had a very big fear of dying, and she was not prepared for this at all. You know, for the 63 years she's been a Jehovah's Witness, and her belief was that she was never going to die. She was just going to, you know, scoot on into paradise after Armageddon came. So, you know, for 63 years, she's been waiting for Armageddon to come. And, you know, it obviously didn't happen in her lifetime. Of course, I don't believe any of that anyway, but so she was completely unprepared to die. And so she had a lot of fear around that. So I helped her release a lot of those fears. And so that's how, you know, some of the stuff that I do is really helpful in this process. And also, as she came, you know, after we got to the hospital, I did do a post on what had happened, but she was found in a pool of blood by her friends, and she was rushed to the hospital, and was, very afraid, and we think she may have had a stroke because she couldn't really talk. And so once they calmed her down with the morphine, that was it. She basically was asleep for 5-6 days and just waiting in this whole process. Hey, Bruce. So but it was helpful for me during this process to evaluate where her body was, like how active was her brain? Was she brain dead yet? How active was her heart? And so, I was measuring these things. I was helping her release her spirit out of her body. And so for the most part, she was just, above her body. But as I watched the numbers decline, as I watched the activity of the brain, the numbers decline, the heart declining, it was the lungs that actually had the only number that was left. So even though her heart was beating for a long time, it had been beating for 94 years, and so it was still it's doing its thing, even though everything else was, the brain activity was not there, and so forth. So anyway, that was helpful for me to know kind of where she was energetically with her organs and everything that was shutting down. So I think that was also helpful for some of the family too, to kind of get an idea of where she was at. But we I thought there was a few things that were kind of interesting. Is that one day, it's a couple days ago, I remember leaving the hospital and just feeling so sad. I mean, I was just really, really sad. And you would say, of course you're sad. Your mom's dying. And so I was crying so hard I couldn't even make it home. So I pulled off on the side of the road, went to this parking area, and fell asleep for a few hours until the police came and woke me up, said you're not in a safe place. So I left and I went back to the hospital. But what I also realized was the next day I started to check and see how many people were corded to me, because I know there was just a big outpouring of support and people, wanting to connect and give their, their love and so forth. But there were 70 people according to me. And so, I so appreciate all the love and kindness and that was being sent my direction. But they were also sending a lot of their own sadness. Maybe they had lost a loved one. So that's why I wanted to come on and share some of the things that I discovered throughout this process, and kind of what's helped me. Obviously, it's a very sad thing to have to watch loved ones go. And, for everybody who loses a parent, it's going to be different for everybody. I think even, the 5 family members, I think we all even experienced this differently, even though we were all part of the same scenario, because we all bring our own things and we all get triggered in different ways. We have maybe unresolved things that are coming up. And so everybody is going to experience the passing of their parents differently. But some of the things that are really helpful is to really make sure that you're really, really grounded, and that you really take care of yourself as best as possible, and to listen, when you need to take a break, or, like for me, I couldn't stay to the end. There was that was just not going to happen. And that was my way of taking care of myself. So you have to take care of yourself in this process. A big part of me also needed to be with my mom. I was there like most of the time. The first night I even spent the night just because I just needed to be there. But at any rate, I hope that when you have to go through this, that you have a lot of support. And another thing, because of the energy work that I do, I have released already so much sadness. I don't carry around a lot of sadness, anger, grief. I don't carry those things. And so that's why when I was feeling so much grief, I knew that all of that was not mine. But it did help to kind of squeeze out any grief that I did have. And so I really did have a really good cry. But at any rate, it's an interesting process. And, I hope that it's not a difficult thing for you, and that you have a lot of support when you have to go through this. And for those of you who are maybe still struggling, maybe the passing of your parent has been a long time and you're still suffering from that, I would really suggest that you reach out, because it's not necessary to continue to hold on to that grief. Of course, there's a certain amount of time where you grieve and you're sad and you carry that. But some people have this belief that if they let go of that sadness, that they're letting go of their parent, that they're letting go of all the memories, that they're letting go of all the good things about their parent. And that's really not true. So you can keep all your memories, you can keep them close in your heart, and you can stay connected to them. But to hold on to this sadness is really not necessary to continue to do that. So if you need help with that, I suggest you reach out, and I can help you find where you're holding on to that grief, and help you let it go so that you can move forward. And so now we're in the cleanup phase, which is interesting as well. For everybody, that's going to be different too. Maybe they just have someone that comes in and does it, but as a family, we're sort of doing this together. And so 94 years of collecting stuff and memories and all of that. Anyway, it's a lot of stuff to deal with. So honor your feelings as they come up. Let them pass through. Stay grounded. Stay in your heart. And I know that one of the most profound things I felt, as my mother was going through this process, she had to reject me as part of her religion, because I left her religion. And it was only after she had gone into this state that I could really start to feel her love, because she was starting to let go of the body and all the resentments and all of the programs, and she was starting to get into that much lighter part of her being. And that's when I could finally and really feel her love, which was really kind of interesting. So anyway, it's going to be different for everybody, but I did that. That was one of the big lessons that came up for me during this whole process, is having to let go of the resentments of, because my mother had to reject me because of her religion. When we were there visiting with her, we got to see how all of her Jehovah's Witness friends who came by to visit her, which I think was so beautiful and great to see how many people loved her and honored her and appreciated her. And yet at that same time, I had this really conflicted feeling of feeling deprived of all that love, that should have been for me and our family, but we didn't get to do that. Thanks, Danny. So that was something that, I had to let go of. I had to let go of that resentment and just feel glad and happy for her that she was able to have so much love. I think there was a part of me that thought she was just really, always alone and suffering, but she really had a lot of friends. And so it was great to see that in the end, it was those friends that were with her, which is how she would have wanted it. And she created what she wanted. So it was beautiful, it was sad, it was healing. It's all of those things. So I hope you have a great weekend and you're able to get out and enjoy beautiful weather here. I'm up in Petaluma right now, staying at my sister's. So off to go do some cleaning. All right, sending much love, friends, and hopefully we'll connect on Sunday. Otherwise, I'll see you next week. And until then, keep asking my favorite question. How does it get any better than this? And then stay in that blissful question of, I wonder. All right, much love, friends. Namaste.